Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hi everyone, I am really excited for this episode with Liz Roman, aka the Poop Queen. Liz is a certified functional nutritional practitioner and restorative wellness practitioner, specializing in gut health and holistic healing. She is the founder and co-owner of FITMOM, a top-tier functional nutrition practice, and she is dedicated to uncovering and addressing the root cause of digestive disorders, hormonal imbalances, autoimmune challenges, and metabolic health issues. We talk about a lot of that today in the show. She's also a podcaster of the Health Revival Show, where she shares a lot of health strategies that empower women to reclaim control over their well-being. Liz shared 6 tips for people who have constipation and healthy bowel movements and overall health. Constipation and the opposite problem of that, which is loose stools or diarrhea, are a major issue in our world. There are over 2.5 million doctor visits per year because of it. And having proper elimination is not the norm. So I was really excited to have Liz on the show because she really breaks it down for us. And of course, you know me, I love practical tips that we can take away. Her tips are not expensive. In fact, I think they're all free. This is so important, especially because we just don't talk enough about it. And we also talk about autoimmune issues, how this can affect our skin health, and so much more. I know I say this a lot, but I really love this one. You will walk away with some real actionable items we can all do to improve this area of our lives. And it's just normal for us not to be healthy in this area. And it's a big deal. So, and we talk all about it in the episode. You can check out Liz, her podcast, her Instagram. I highly recommend you go to her Instagram because she has a lot of information there, and her website. She does a ton of great things for helping women become healthier in this area. And if you're not healthy in this area, you know it and you feel it and you're going to want to do something about it. So I'll link all of that in the show notes. I really hope you enjoy. When I first started my wellness journey, I had already been in the skincare industry for years, working on client skin and as an educator for multiple skincare brands. When I learned about how the toxins in our personal care and beauty products could have a negative impact on our health, I knew I needed to make a change. I was used to the result-driven products that I was working with, and I was not happy with the natural products on the market at that time. Although they were safer and cleaner, they did not meet my expectations for results. I created Simply Just Skincare to deliver the results my clients demanded from their products while using natural, toxin-free ingredients. You can check out my clients' results and reviews on my website, simplyjustskincare.com. In 30 days, my clients have reported more hydrated skin, less appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, and more of an overall glow. Our top sellers include our Repair Toner, our Hydrating Undo Serum with hyaluronic acid, and more. I am offering my listeners 20% off their first order with code PODCAST. Check it out in the link in my show notes to get glowing today. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. I have a gut health specialist with us, Liz Roman. Welcome to Learning to Glow.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and excited to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. I think you're excited about, and it aligns perfectly with what you were just talking about off air with skin health.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So true, right? Like we're talking gut health today, but I think this is something, and you can educate me here, but I think that this topic that we're starting with is common. I don't know if it's talked about as much. I know you guys talk about it, but I haven't talked about it on my podcast. And we're talking about having people who have, chronic constipation or just constipation and what we can do about it, because that is not a comfortable thing to have.
It's not. And I think that so many people, it's not something too fun that's like really sexy to talk about in terms of bowel movements.
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram at the Poop Queen, and I talk about it all the time because so many people don't. And it is such an issue. especially for women. I find more so
Mm.
than not, just because of our hormones and the fluctuation. But I was actually just talking with a client earlier today, and she's a teacher, and she said that she was talking with a colleague of hers, and she's like, "Yeah, I poop once a week," and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, so many people think that this is normal, that they don't go to the bathroom every day. But ideally, I mean, bowel movements are waste. It's toxic products, it's metabolized hormones, right? It's all these things that your body is trying to eliminate and excrete. And we want to fully empty daily. So I always say 1 to 3 times a day, pain free. And I love fun facts. So I will share with you all if you're like, oh, wow, that's not me. You might be part of the population that doesn't think that this is an issue, but there's 2.5 million primary care visits per year because of constipation. And it costs us about $7
Wow.
billion in direct medical expenses. So things that we'll talk about today, practical, tactical, and we can talk about why constipation happens. But in terms of skin health, I always say to people, like, that shit will come out your skin. If you're not moving your bowels, you're not fully eliminating every day, your system is backing up. It's going to be a burden on the body. And we can experience all kinds of digestive symptoms, joint pain, brain fog, fatigue, skin issues, a variety of skin issues. So it's really, really important. And I'm here to talk about it and help people go to the bathroom every day.
Oh, I'm so excited. That's so amazing. And yeah, once a week, that sounds terrible. So I want to, before we get started in this, will you tell us a little bit about yourself first and like how you got to do this work? I know you're also a podcaster. So tell us a little bit about you.
Yes. So I started in this line of work because I was chronically constipated for 8 years. I was over
Oh,
200 pounds. I was exhausted all the time. I had a lot of skin issues, acne, and then skin spots. Dealt with dry skin and dandruff, in the wintertime and things like that. And my doctors just kept saying, like, everything is normal. I even had a colonoscopy in college, and they were like, take Miralax, drink more water, eat more fiber. And I was like, no, I just don't feel good. And so I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in my early 20s. Prior to that, in my youth, I was about 11 years old. I was diagnosed with children's rheumatoid arthritis. So this was actually my second autoimmune condition.
oh.
And I didn't know anything about functional medicine, at that point in time, but I just knew that I was tired of going to doctors and having my symptoms fall on deaf ears. So that's when I started studying. I was like, man, I'm going to figure this out. I sought functional medicine rather than conventional medicine. And that was really life changing, life saving for me. And now I have a practice of 7 practitioners. My company is called FITMOM Lifestyle. We work with women all over the world. So United States, Canada, Europe, and Mexico right now. And we work on everything root cause related. So if it's, hormonal imbalances, mold toxicity, Lyme disease, autoimmune disease, gut health, all of the things, our goal is to really identify why the body is burdened and not try to just mask things, with supplements or medications or whatever the doctor tells you, Imodium or Miralax in the case of maybe diarrhea or constipation. And that's really, why I'm passionate about this particular topic, is because it's near and dear to my heart. I was miserable. And when I did take the Miralax, if anybody's ever taken that, it's very toxic to the body. Do not recommend it. It was very painful. It would be a lot of cramping and then urgency to go to the bathroom. And that's no way to live.
Mm.
And many women I work with either struggle with one way or the other, or a mix, right? So they don't go to the bathroom on their own. They have to rely on things. They strain to go. It's painful. They have hemorrhoids or fissures because of this, straining. Maybe they have pelvic floor issues. On the flip side, I have a lot of clients that come in with, diarrhea and urgency, and they miss out on life, vacations or going to family events or birthday parties because they don't know how their body's going to respond, and they don't want to have, an accident. So really everything that we do in our practice, it all starts with the guts, but we are looking at all 11 systems of the body so that we can really help somebody heal long term.
Oh, I love that. I mean, that's such a common thing that I hear too. It's like you're taking a stool softener or, you're given like these little band-aids, but it's so important to figure out like why it's happening in the first place. And when you were dealing with all of these things and you were trying to get to the bottom of it with the root cause, where did you feel like the main issue revolved around for you? Like what was the main root cause for you?
Yeah, so I would say twofold. When I went, through functional medicine, we first identified the Hashimoto's. So I was in what we call stage 2 autoimmunity, which means I was symptomatic and my antibodies were elevated, showing that there was an autoimmune activity, an attack on the thyroid, but my thyroid hormones were fine. So like a conventional medicine doctor would have found that, because they're just generally looking at a TSH and maybe a T4. And if that's not out of range for them, which is a different conversation because their ranges are much wider than ours in conventional or functional medicine, right? We want to be optimal. It's a tighter range. So they weren't investigating, right? They weren't doing any further digging here. And so when you have hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, that's going to equal a slowdown of all things, not just motility, but also metabolism, right? I was struggling to lose weight and I was tired all the time. And anybody out there that's had hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's can relate to most of those symptoms. But the second thing was that I had a lot of gut dysbiosis. I had H. pylori, candida, and which is a type of fungus yeast overgrowth, as well as parasites that were identified. And so I needed to really clear those infections out of my body. And that, parasites will bind us up because they don't want to leave. We're a nice host. And so when we think about root cause, it's not that, we just want to eliminate everything. We have to ask the bigger question, why are these things allowed to thrive and survive in the body? Because if we have proper stomach acid and we have proper chemical signaling within the digestive system, we have built-in antimicrobials. We have, our own protective mechanisms between bile and stomach acid that will neutralize viruses, bacteria, parasites, anything that, we're exposed to these things all the time, every day, all day. Whether it's food, water, air, we're around these microbes. And so it's really about how do we help the immune system be a defensive host. And so by correcting the gut imbalances, that's corrected the thyroid imbalances, calmed the immune system down. And I've been in remission now for, I would say, 6 years, not taking thyroid medication. Do take a thyroid, just natural support, a glandular. I always have to clarify that because some people have asked, like, you don't take anything? No, I do take a thyroid glandular that just supports nourishing the thyroid. And then, I live a lifestyle that really helps me be a defensive host, supporting digestion. And we'll get into that a little bit because that's really big with constipation.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, you are my goal. Like I'm going towards where you are currently. I have hypothyroidism. And,
Okay.
I know that in my training and all the things I've learned on this show, it is possible to be able to get off my medicine eventually. And, I did try like cold turkey a couple of years ago. I'll never forget. I was not in the place to do that and I could not get off the couch. So I am working on my health to eventually get to where you are. So I love to hear that. It's so nice to hear because a lot of doctors have told me, this is for life and like this is your lot and this is what you have to deal with. And so it's such a great example that you're sharing with us of what's possible. And it does, I know it takes work. I'm doing work and I know you did a lot of work to get to where you are, but I think maybe we could start. I'd love to hear some of these tips because I know not only are these tips going to help you if you're having problems with constipation, but just with your health overall. Like this is so important. So I'd love to hear. Let's start with some of these tips for chronic constipation.
Yes. So I would first just say to you, healing is possible.
Mhm.
Healing takes time,
Yeah.
right? I think when we come from conventional medicine, we take an MP thyroid, a levothyroxine, a synthroid, and we see numbers change and maybe symptoms, right? Change. But one of the things about thyroid medication is it's so unnatural to the body that it's like a 20 times input. First thing in the morning, most people take their thyroid medication upon waking, and then the body has to also counterbalance and be like, whoa, that's a lot. And so what we see is over time insensitivity to hearing those hormones, or we're constantly cranking the T4 with levothyroxine and never supporting the T3. So, from a conventional medicine standpoint, a lot of times it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? As you kind of walk this fine line of re-signaling, the communication pathways in the body, supporting the thyroid. And eventually, for most people, at least that I work with, we get them off thyroid medication. But of course, there are cases that they need to stay on it. So also don't feel bad if that's you and that, you're doing all the other things, but this really helps you. My biggest quarrel with some thyroid medications is that they just keep upping the dose. right? Because if that's what's happening, it's not really working. And thyroid's kind of like the canary in the cave. So I
Yeah,
just
well,
wanted to say that too.
thank you for saying that. And actually, that makes me feel a little bit better because I actually have been going down in my doses. So, which is like I feel like I'm on the right track because that is working for me. So, but I love that message and thank you for saying that again because it is so true. We feel like, you get some information and it's very disheartening and you're trying to be as healthy as you can and it's like it's tricky and we're learning so much more now about how there are a lot of roadblocks with conventional medicine and we have to like maybe switch like you did when you were young and like okay this I need to go to someone who is going to get to the root cause so I can truly heal and not just there that's a whole other topic but I really appreciate you saying all of that so sorry go ahead.
I think it's so important, and I mean, I'm sure your listeners really value that you're vulnerable because we're all human. And again, it took me 8 years of going to different doctors and having things fall on deaf ears and trying to advocate for myself to say this isn't working. I just kept hitting, roadblock after roadblock. And the most important thing that I want for everybody is to have a good quality of life and to feel vibrant. And so I am much more on the side of functional medicine, where it's a blend of the holistic side. And then also sometimes we do pull in pharmaceuticals and conventional medicine because we do want to recognize that there's been a lot of things that can be very life-changing for people there as well. So anyways, as we get into this, I first want to kind of define constipation. So I said earlier, 1 to 3 times a day, pain-free. So what falls within that would still maybe leave you feeling like, okay, but am I constipated? Like I go, but I don't feel like I fully empty. Yeah, that's a form of constipation. Like you should really feel satisfied. And I know that feels strange, or sounds strange to some people who aren't used to talking about poop. You should feel satisfied. You should be like, yeah, I used to call it victory when I would go to the bathroom because it was so constipated, so painful. Um, we don't want to strain, right? We want to have easy to pass, normal formed sausage like stools. If you're looking at a Bristol stool chart, I always say number 4 is what you're going for. So we don't want these like pebbly stools that are floating. We want it to sink like the Titanic. So that's kind of, if you're evaluating your daily poops or your child's poops, that's really what you are going after to get, kind of a full evacuation. So 6 tips. How do we really support the body? And number 1 is always going to come down to something that is simple, but not easy. And that is getting your body into more of a rest and digest state. So I really tell people when you're sitting down and you're eating, try to take some breaths before you eat, 3 to 5 breaths. Look at your food, connect with your food, and chew your food really well. Okay. I start here because I struggle with this, being transparent. I'm never here to throw rocks at a glass house, right? How many of us, I'm a mom of a toddler, I'm having another one on the way. How many of us eat in a rush, on the go, distracted, right? At our computer or our desk, right? And we don't ever really fully chew our food. That places a lot of stress on the digestive system from a chemical perspective, right? We need stomach acid, we need pancreatic enzymes, we need bile to break down these food particles. And if we're not chewing our food well, and there's a lot of, stress on the digestive system, and your central nervous system feels like it's being chased by a bear because you're not sitting down, things are not going to function smoothly. We're going to feel bloated, gassy, probably a little more backed up and constipated. Or for some individuals, it might hit them later on where it's an urgent stool. There you might be seeing, undigested food particles in your stool. So I think that's number 1, is really just trying to take 10 minutes with your meals, slow down, chew your food well. That can really, really help. This may not be something that you can do all the time. So if that's the case, then what I say is in those times, let's say mornings are hectic, maybe you do a smoothie that's a little bit already broken down for the system that you can drink on your way to work, right? If you're trying to get the kids out of the house and rushing around and it's just hectic, I'd much rather somebody make a smoothie and drink that on the way to work than try to, eat a protein bar in the midst of getting the kids in the car. And you know what I mean? Like they're just eating all over the place while they're doing everything. So that's number 1. The second thing is, are you adequately hydrated? Water is the most vital nutrient to the body, and we need electrolytes. We need sodium. We need potassium. We need magnesium to really help pull water into the cells. If you're a dried out raisin, you're probably not going to poop very well. Probably going to strain, you know, your colon's going to be dried out. It's not going to be pleasant. So focus on, I would say, at least half your body weight in ounces. If you are somebody that sweats, take that up to 2/3 per day. And this has got to be consistent. And I think that, you know, before everybody goes to like the supplement side of things, which we could totally talk about, you've got to have the foundations in place. And hydration is a foundation for everything in life, skin health, right? I
Absolutely.
know you could attest to that, I'm sure.
I have a question about this. I love this tip for hydration, and I have a question about it as far as like if I'm staying hydrated on a regular basis, I'm drinking my water throughout the day. Do you also recommend using electrolytes, because you did mention the minerals and everything? And is some salt and lemon juice in your water sufficient, or do you recommend like a store-bought electrolyte?
Yeah. I love that you asked that question, because one of the tips that I would say that's really, really impactful is starting your day with lemon water and a pinch of sea salt. Because
Mm.
you wake up in an already dehydrated state, that bitterness from the lemon water will actually stimulate bile flow and stomach acid production. So it's really great for both digestion and liver and detoxification. From an electrolyte standpoint, this is really where it comes down to evaluating the food and the totality of, you know, their diet. How much are you getting in through antioxidants, colors? You know, are you getting natural forms of sodium in your diet? Research shows us anywhere between like 4 and 6 grams of sodium per day is really helpful for the body. We have a couple podcasts. I could always send those if you want, because we kind of go through all the research and everything. Because, you know, we have all these organizations that tell us no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day and low sodium and just fierce sodium. But really, when we think about good quality mineral salt, every cell in your body has a sodium potassium pump. And we need to be adequately hydrated cellularly. And a lot of times people feel better when they have more mineral salts coming in. And so if somebody too has like swelling or edema and they've been on a low sodium diet for a long time, generally we see giving them higher amounts of water and sodium will flush all that inflammation out, and they'll actually pull it to the cells. So you kind of shrink
Mm.
on the outside as your cells grow on the inside. So person to person, I mean, I personally do at least like one packet. I generally do Element per day, or like a Relight or something along those lines. But I think it also has, because I don't eat a lot of processed foods, right? So I'm not getting a lot of sodium in my diet. Whereas if somebody had a lot of processed foods, we have to evaluate that too. So I think this is going to be person independent. There's a lot out there. Just Ingredients has a really great electrolyte as well. Many of them, you know, are a little more balanced from a sodium potassium ratio than Element is. But for me, I have found Element is just one that I love. It's the packets. I can easily take it. And then usually I'll just do some coconut water for a little extra potassium to kind of counterbalance the higher sodium to potassium ratio there. But I think everyone should and could benefit from starting their day with lemon water and a good mineral salt in the morning.
Oh, I love that. I actually did that today. I don't do it every day, but I'm very happy that I did that today. I'm feeling good about myself. Okay, let's go to the next
I
one.
love that. Yep. So number 3 is movement. So a body in motion stays in motion. And so walking after your meals can be really helpful, stimulate digestion, the movement of food through the digestive tract. This also supports blood sugar and energy levels too. So we know many people generally just eat on the go. They're in a stressed out state. They don't even make the connection that they're eating this. A couple hours later, because they didn't taste and savor their food, now they're craving sugar, blood sugar's all over the place, right? And we just don't have a good eating routine. Some people are grazers, they snack a lot. So I really find that if you're doing these things, you're mindful with your eating, you're chewing your food well, you make that connection. You have a walk after your meal. Research says just 2 minutes. I mean, that's not a lot of time. Can be beneficial, but I generally say try to go for like a anywhere from 5 to 15 minute walk. And I would love it if people can get sunlight on their eyes. That helps as well, just for energy. But most importantly, when we think about digestion, a body in motion will stay in motion. So make sure that you are moving throughout the day, getting up from your desk, every hour or so if you can, and especially after meals. If you are somebody that struggles with blood sugar issues, research shows us after dinner is really the prime time. You can lower your total glucose by 22% if you're walking after dinner consistently. That comes from, I think, Levels research that they did from a continuous glucose monitor. So now it's getting dark outside when we hit the time change next week, but that would be a really great time to kind of consider implementing that if you can't do it, breakfast and lunchtime.
I love that tip. I actually just read that Good Energy book, and I learned about walking after dinner, and it's so great. Even when I don't feel like going out, I have a little walking pad. I'm like, I'll just go on the walking pad.
Yeah.
I had an acupuncturist on my show, and she said that this is like ancient Chinese wisdom, but she said 100 steps and after dinner to be 100 years old. And it was so funny. After that podcast, my husband and I went outside and we're like, we're going to count 100 steps and see how it was. Like literally, like you said, 2 minutes. It's not like a long time. So even if you could just get out for a little bit or walk around your house or go up and down the stairs, like that's a huge difference in your blood sugar.
Yeah, it is. I love Dr. Casey Means. And also, this is reminding me to tell you, there's a viral video on TikTok. It's an older woman. I don't know if she's a doctor or practitioner or what, but she came up with fart walks. So her and her husband go out every night for their fart walk. Literally, it's like she has this whole video. It's kind of hysterical to watch it, but she doesn't care. She's got to be in her 60s. I think she was really such a cute lady, but it was just really funny because I'm like, yes, okay, so there is evidence here to support it. I don't think we have to call it that, but
I love it. Oh my God, it's so good.
take your fart walk. All right, number 4. So these, again, I should probably go back and categorize them in priority, but they're not. They're all equally important here. So number 4 is pooping hygiene, which is something that not a lot of people talk about or think about. So similar to eating hygiene, if you're in a rush, some people are really going to just be on lockdown. Body is not thinking about you eliminating your bowels. It's really thinking about keeping you surviving, moving, heart pumping blood, blinking, those types of things, right? On the flip side, some people, they handle stress differently and their gut is real sensitive. And so they have urgency and they go to the bathroom and have more loose stools. But when I say pooping hygiene, what I mean here is that you don't want to be in a rush in the morning time. So in Chinese medicine, colon cleansing time is between 5 and 7 a.m. So when you wake up in the morning, it's ideal to start your day with that lemon water that's going to stimulate digestion, support the liver, and give yourself time to chill out, get the signal that you need to go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom, and as crazy as it sounds, get your squatty potty out, get your knees elevated above your hips. This is a good position for your pelvic floor to release. And I will be the first person to tell you that I threw away at least 2 squatty potties many years ago because I thought they were gag gifts, and like the white elephant. I'm like, what is this? Why do I need this? And if you don't have one of those, you can use like your kid's stool. You can turn the trash can over. When I travel, I just turn the trash can over because it's much more comfortable to actually go to the bathroom that way. And that helps alleviate some straining. And, again, what comes with straining most of the time? Hemorrhoids, right? Uncomfortableness to the tissue. So we don't want that. So pooping hygiene, I think, is important. And again, going back to what I said earlier, everybody's in a different season of life. I understand, that might not be possible. You might be like, yeah, Liz, my kids are up at 5. So I don't know. I can, relate to that. My little guy is up early. I've got another one on the way. Postpartum, this is not going to be perfect. But I think there are many people out there who really hit the snooze or just wake up in that like stressed out state, hair on fire, got to go. And, they're running out the door or whatever they're doing. They're going to the gym first thing. Just try to get up 20 minutes earlier. It doesn't need to be like a real long time, but you want to get the signal to your body. So that's a big one. Number 5, I would say is, diet diversity. This is a big thing. So you hear a lot of times from doctors, fiber, and yes, fiber is important, but you can also make somebody really more constipated or really uncomfortable if you're just trying to throw a bunch of fiber in a system that's already backed up. So when I say diet diversity, what I'm really meaning here is colors of food, rotating your foods, trying to eat in season, not eat the same 10 to 12 foods all the time, and then slowly walk your fiber up because fiber is very helpful. You want to focus on insoluble fiber. If you are more constipated, if you are more, diarrhea, loose stool, you want to focus on soluble fiber. So, that can just be something that you think about in your day. Most of my clients are at 35 grams plus per day. That average American, I think, is like 10 to 12 grams or less. So
Wow.
where does that come in, right? Can we get oatmeal? Can we get fruits like, pears, apples, berries, things like, potatoes, quinoa, really one ingredient wholesome foods that your body can utilize, I think is important. But most people eat the same foods all the time. So really try to diversify that. I think that's a huge thing. And with that, I would say anything that you're doing that's maybe new, it could be fermented foods or a different type of yogurt, or again, these fibers, go slow. Like low and slow is kind of what I say. You don't want to just flip the switch because you heard this podcast and you're like, yeah, I'm going to make this smoothie and it's going to have chia and flax and all these amazing things and berries. And then you're uncomfortable and you're cramping and you're like, oh my God, this is miserable. I don't want to continue with it. Like really start to introduce things, maybe a half of tablespoon or so at a time and work your way up if you're not, already hitting those fiber goals, and just think about eating the rainbow. The last one
Oh,
here
okay.
is, sorry, go ahead. You have a question?
I do. Real quick. So, just in case somebody is listening and they don't know the difference between soluble and insoluble fiber, can you break that down for us?
Yes. So insoluble fibers are going to be things that really help move food through the digestive tract. I have a whole list that I can pull up for you and kind of give you some examples here. And then soluble fibers are going to be things that slow things down in, again, bulk up the stool so that you're not having those loose stools. And so when we think about this, we're basically going to want to think about a variety of, different vegetables. I'm just pulling up a list here because off the top of my head, I can't rattle them all off to you. And I do have some on my Instagram page. But so from a soluble fiber standpoint, so we're going to think about like oatmeal, right? Oat bran, barley, nuts, seeds, beans, lentils, peas. And then insoluble is going to be things that really, are going to come from those leafy greens. And when we're thinking about the insoluble fibers, I think most importantly is, bell peppers or carrots. Carrots have a great affinity for estrogen if you have estrogen dominance too, by the way, potatoes, sweet potatoes. So those are a couple. Honestly, what I would do is, I'm not rattling all of them off here, but do a simple Google search and you can find an image that you can even save on your phone. I'm looking at a few of them now, actually, that kind of give you a list so that when you go grocery shopping, you can ask yourself, like, how many of these do I have? Now, I think it's important that you get, kind of a balance here, right? Because so many people can err too much on the insoluble fiber side, and you do want a little bit of a balance there. But just from a ratio standpoint, you can focus more on a lot of my gals who have constipation. This is what I actually have them do in their protocols. Lots of berries, 2 kiwis a day. Research shows us that 2 kiwis a day can work as like an osmotic laxative to pull water into the bowel so that they can go. And then I just think greens, lots of green vegetables. So this could be things like cucumber. It's got a little bit more water in there, broccoli. Any bitter greens are really helpful too because they'll stimulate bile from the liver gallbladder, which helps you lubricate your colon. So that's a good one. And then I think depending upon how they tolerate certain carbs and, what their blood sugar is doing, thinking about, brown rice rather than white rice. I do love oatmeal, and I think you get a lot of benefits there because you could also throw in like chia and flax and some other stuff to make it a little bit more fibrous. But really, when I'm thinking about, the insoluble fibers, 2 kiwis a day is kind of like the place to start. If you're just like, okay, I just want one thing,
Mm-hmm.
that can really help in addition to everything else that, we talked about.
The kiwi tip is so great because there's so much vitamin C too in a kiwi. It's like way more than an orange and they're so delicious. So I love that. And I do have a question for some of your women that you work with. And I've heard this is true that you can be both constipated but then also be having diarrhea and it's almost like there's a blockage and like
Mhm.
tell us if you've seen that with your clients or if that's a common thing too.
Very common. And there's actually a term for this. It's called obstipation. And that's the worst
Oh.
form of constipation.
Oh my
When
gosh.
you when you have this urgent loose stool that's like watery, that is something that basically your body is like, there's stuck poop here and it's going around it. So, this is a little challenging because for women, we also have something called the estrogen shits, which is a really very real thing around the time of your period. So you might feel a little more constipated, usually the week leading into your cycle, but about 3 days before you begin bleeding, all hormones drop, right? We're getting ready to shed the uterine lining. And so some women will find at the beginning of their period there, they have like this dumping where then they're going like multiple times a day and it's kind of uncomfortable. So, I think looking at your cycle is important too. But yeah, if you are somebody that goes back and forth, honestly, I look to this as like more liver gallbladder issues than more like gut dysbiosis for most people, because you can have, and this is especially true for people who don't have gallbladder. So your liver produces bile. It's a type of gastric juice that helps us break down fats. Very, very important for, fatty soluble vitamins and antioxidants, but also lubricating the colon and cleansing the colon, because it's actually our built-in antimicrobial. So a lot of times people have what's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Mm-hmm.
That's because their bile is very sluggish. Think of like peanut butter compared to fluid and like water. That's what we want it to be. So then your gallbladder is supposed to store it and concentrate it. So then if you have, let's say, a burger and fries, right? It's going to give you the right amount of bile at the right time to break all that fat down, even though it's not good fat for you because probably more saturated fats there. But we need that. And a lot of times if it's, again, hormone related or it's stress related, or there's a lot of burden on the body, our toxic bucket is really full, the liver is burdened and this bile becomes very sluggish. And we have these, signals that are not moving and communicating the way that they should. You can kind of even bounce back and forth because of more liver gallbladder things. So you're 100% correct that some people do flip flop, and there can be a variety of reasons for that. But if you find that that's you with that urgent stool and you've been backed up and you haven't gone, you're probably dealing with that worst form of constipation, which is obstipation. So,
Oh, I did not know that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
yeah. Yeah. It's hard. You want to get ahead of things. You want to stay ahead of things. So I'm in my third trimester right now in pregnancy, and first couple trimesters were a breeze, but now I am definitely working harder, which my sixth tip here is going to be, magnesium supplementation, just give the body, some support, because that's one of the top, we didn't talk about root causes, we can, but that is one of the top reasons why people struggle is magnesium deficiency. And really, this comes down to a couple things. Our soil is depleted of minerals. I'm sure Dr. Casey Means talks about it in Good Energy. Therefore, our food is depleted of minerals. And magnesium is involved in over 600 enzymatic functions of the body. You need it for all types of things, including proper bowel movement and communication, peristalsis, motility, movement of food through the digestive tract. So I think magnesium is a very safe, gentle, and effective support. I personally, I like a mix of citrate and glycinate, and I want to talk about kind of the pros of both. Many people will go and they'll do like oxide, which is a great form too, or they'll do citrate only, like magnesium calm. And I used to recommend this a lot, to be honest. And then I really had, realize like I don't really like the way this tastes. I don't really like the way this feels, in my stomach, and because it gets really bubbly and like fizzy. And I'm a soda water girl through and through, but it just hit different. And it can be harsh. It can, if you overdo it, it can give us a clean out. And so we use it for somebody who's really backed up to do a clean out. But from a day-to-day perspective, I really like a blend. It's called Prozorb Plus. I talk about this a lot on my Instagram because it's got vitamin C, magnesium citrate, which is going to pull water into the bowels as an osmotic laxative. And then it's got magnesium glycinate, which is one of the best absorbable forms, but it actually helps fill the gaps in other areas of the body that you might be deficient, not just the colon first. And it helps on the neurosignaling, which is really important because we don't want to become reliant on any one thing to move our bowels, right? People will rely on Senna tea or Miralax, right? Or whatever it is that they've found works for them. And they just keep taking that. And then if they don't take it, they don't go. That's a lazy bowel. You've become reliant on it. So with magnesium, we know it's involved in so many other things. It's kind of one of the safer things that I would say, less downfalls to take regularly. But I like that blend because it gives you a lot for the immune system, the digestive system, neural signaling as well. And, again, there's many other things in my constipation cure guide that could help or that you could try or rotate through. But if this is something that you've struggled with, it's not just around your period. Because I always tell people too, if it's around your cycle, it's cyclical. You can pinpoint it, support that body staying in motion, right? Hey, I know I'm a week out from my period. Start your magnesium at nighttime every night, or just keep it in every night, right? Maybe up your fiber, up your water, do some things with your diet, your lifestyle, abdominal massaging, more lemon water, teas, whatever it might be for you. But don't just like wait for it to happen and then you're being reactive, right? We always want to stay proactive with things. But if it is something that's chronic, there's reasons. And there's 29 different reasons I have on my Instagram and a post, because so many people don't realize underlying hidden infections, stressors to the body that are perceived and known, to you or unknown, right? So that could be things that your central nervous system is holding on to, different traumas from the past, little T's or big T's. Again, never getting into that rest and digest parasympathetic state. Deficiencies, right? We talked about magnesium, but there's many other ones that require, the body to function, and the body is pretty amazing. I mean, we can grow humans. Like there's so many things that have to fire correctly for things to run smoothly that you really have to kind of do some further investigating if it is something that is chronic. And, some of these things that I've talked about today, you're already doing and they're not helping, then you got to get to peeling the layers of the onion back to see what's going on.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I'm definitely going to check out that magnesium supplement. I know I am deficient. I know most people are. Like you said, that's
Yeah.
such a common thing that we're dealing with. So I'm going to check that out. I want to ask too, because I know a lot of people who get into these positions, they talk about wanting to do colonics, and I wanted to see, what are your thoughts on those?
Yeah. So the way that I say this is I'm not really a fan of power washing your colon. um, Temporary fix, right, is what I would look to those as. And when you really look at the pros and cons here, it is a little bit mixed, right? So one, you got to make sure that you have somebody who's like trained to do this and do this well. I think that's a big thing, because it's not, being done in the doctor's office, right? Like it's like med spas and things like that are generally doing, and it's quite expensive. And then what we see on the flip side is that people then don't go to the bathroom for like a week. So I'm actually a bigger fan of doing things like enemas, like water enemas or coffee enemas. And I know not a lot of people like to maybe think about putting that up their bum, but it can be very cost effective. It can be very helpful to those of you who really do struggle while you are working to do the underlying work. But colonics, I think, is just kind of like a Band-Aid to things, right? It's kind of like a Miralax. So I'm not a big fan. I've never been a big fan of them. I just think they're expensive, and I think they're kind of harsh on the body. And, we really want to figure out what's the issue that's going on that we're not, because there could be, there's so many things, right? There can be people who have had reconstruction surgery or C-sections or endometriosis, and there's scar tissue, right, that needs to be manipulated. Various infections, north to south is what we think about here, right? Low stomach acid, H. pylori is present, candida is present, a lot of dysbiosis, just in the intestine, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, fungal overgrowth, mold, mycotoxins, parasites, all kinds of things, can be going on. And so I'm definitely a bigger fan of the root cause work and not spending, I think they're like $75 to $100 each to do a colonic.
They're more. I think a lot of
They're
times, I
more.
mean, around here anyway, they're a lot more. I mean, I've seen somebody charging like 3 something for it.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah.
That is
Yeah.
wow. Listen, get
Yeah.
an enema kit. You can do an enema kit for like less than $50 most of the time. Use some good distilled water, 1 to 2 cups to start. Generally, it's about 3 cups. I would do that at home more than I would a colonic. And
That's
again,
great. That's so good
that's
to
on their
know.
page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything else? I mean, you've given us so many tips already. And I think, and one of the last things you said that's so important, if you're doing all of this work and you're still struggling and you're still having issues, to get tested for some of these other things that you may not even put 2 and 2 together that could be causing this. But is there any other like dietary changes that we can make, other than, I know I love the diversifying our diet and making sure, I really try to do this, because you do get stuck in your ruts. Like I'm like, well, I love blueberries and I want to eat this every day, or I want to eat spinach all the time, but trying to go to the store and being like, okay, what's in season right now, or what is different? I bought a cantaloupe yesterday. I never buy cantaloupe. I'm like, I'm just going to try. I just want to like mix it up a little bit. So I love that tip. But any other tips as far as nutrition go? I know obviously that plays a huge role in going to the bathroom.
Yeah. So a couple things that come to mind that I think would be really, really powerful to do. So number one is beets. Beets are amazing for loving on your liver. You could do beet juice. You can mix that with apple and lemon and ginger. It'd be really nice liver support and digestive cleanse. I'm not a big fan of like a lot of the juice cleanses out there in general, but I love beets and I love beet juice. So you could do that. I really like apple pectin. So pectin is it's a really good support for good bacteria in the microbiome. Very simple. If you just Pinterest or Google like an apple pectin recipe, you could just do it in the crock pot to where basically you have a lot of apples that you slow cook and then you just like take it immersion blender and then take 2 tablespoons of that a day. That can be really good. They do make things like Pectisol. Those are supplements for this, but I think it's easier if you're just doing that at home. When we get into like old Chinese medicine techniques, they think, okay, like 1 tablespoon of flaxseed, 1 tablespoon in ground flaxseed, 1 tablespoon of chia seed a day. You can do, I have this on my page where you have chia seed and lemon water, and you kind of take it like a shot and shoot that. For some people, that works really, really well. A lot of people say, well, like, what if I have diverticulitis and things like that? And seeds have really kind of been debunked, so even some of the GI doctors that I have spoken with and follow on social media do use that tactic. So it's kind of like the morning cleanse drink. If you don't have high blood pressure, you can do the salty water solution, really salty water, in like as hot as you can kind of get it. I think it's a tablespoon. Again, this is also on my Instagram. I have a reel about this, but that'll get you moving pretty dang quick. And again, you'd want to do that like at a day, you're home first thing in the morning. And I think the biggest thing really is bitters. So bitters are going to help 2 things. One, your stomach acid production and kind of pancreatic enzyme production. I think that if you think, arugula, obviously any like citrus bitters, like we've talked about lemon, lime, Jerusalem artichoke, beet greens, dandelion greens, a lot of those things can be more bitter tasting and really stimulate the gastric juices. That can be also really good. And you could start your meal with that. So Glucose Goddess, if you've ever listened to her or followed her, she talks about eating for blood sugar balance and starting with your veggies first. But there is more than just, benefit to having that fiber and stuff. It's actually the way that it's going to signal the brain that we're here to eat and break these things down. We need more enzymes, more bile, more stomach acid. So bitters are a really great thing to use. I think with your proteins. So a lot of people think they do better with their proteins than they actually they do, right? But protein is one of the hardest things to digest. It requires the most amount of stomach acid. Stomach acid does 2 things for us. It helps us break down proteins, and it also helps basically act as our internal antimicrobial, protect us from, like I mentioned before, viruses, bugs, parasites, things like that. It'll neutralize it within about 15 seconds if it's robust enough. So you could support that beyond bitter foods with things like apple cider vinegar. Not my favorite. I will be honest with that. So I use actually betaine HCl, a stomach acid support, and I have a whole stomach acid guide on my Instagram there that can really help people break things down easier. So if you find that you're somebody who feels overly full with protein, you have aversions to protein, generally we're going to think about this as maybe there's H. pylori present. That's a type of bacteria that damages our parietal cells that produce stomach acid. Or the body just knows I don't have what I need. I don't have enough stomach acid to break this down. So we start to have aversions to these things. I tell people, if you've ever been pregnant, usually in the first trimester for many people, they want carbs, all the carbs. They don't want a lot of protein. They have aversions, it smells, right? Whatever, just doesn't taste good to them. Well, the body knows that protein is really where some of the main infections can kind of come from, right? If we're eating raw things or undercooked things like salmonella, E. coli, parasites, are more likely to get them from that. And then obviously, fruits and vegetables that aren't washed too. But the body just inherently knows these things. And so support your stomach acid, apple cider vinegar before meals. All that is going to help. That's northern digestion in your stomach. All that's going to help downstream. moving through food through the digestive tract properly, better absorption, better breakdown of those foods, right? So that it can get the nutrients where they need to go. And then the waste is set for elimination. And it's a lot easier because it's a smoother process. The way I say this, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, is if you think about making a smoothie and all you have is frozen fruits and veggies, there's no water, there's no milk, there's no juice, whatever you're mixing it with, your blender is probably going to burn out, right? And it's not going to blend well. It's not something that you are going to drink. You need the gastric juices to really properly break things down and emulsify these foods so that we can absorb them, number one, but then also eliminate them in a way that's not causing us a lot of bloating and gas. And then I think, you have to know your body and say, hey, you know what? I know I'm more constipated when I eat more dairy, right? Or I have whatever food that it might be, that makes me more bloated. A lot of times that can be a sign of two things. One, insufficient, enzymes or gastric juice to break it down. Or two, there's bacteria that are fermenting on it. So it's also something that I would tell people, take a food and mood journal, right, for 3 days. Just be curious. Be your own health detective here. What did you eat? How did you eat? And what were your symptoms? And when I say how you ate, like, did you eat fast, distracted, driving, whatever, or were you present and, in a rest and digest state, chewing your food well? And start to correlate, some of those things, because there are certain foods that can certainly be more constipating for some individuals, dairy kind of being a top culprit.
Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. You've given us so many important takeaways, and I'm definitely going to start doing my apple. I'm so bad about my apple cider vinegar. I actually don't mind the taste of it. I just forget. But I know that is something that off and on I've been doing for a long time. I try to drink it while I'm cooking dinner. I'm going to
It's
make
so
sure
helpful. It's so
it's
helpful. I tell so many people, I get it. I know all the information and the benefits of it. If it's not something that, I won't be consistent with it if I don't like it, essentially.
yes.
I can tell you, I remember when I was going through my gut healing journey back in the day, I called the doctor's office and I was like, you've got to change the supplement. I cannot tolerate it. It makes me gag. I'm not going to take it. And they were like, try it this way, try it that way. And I was so repulsed by it, that we have to think about what people are going to do consistently, because that's the big thing. It doesn't really help if we do it every now and then. So if you like it, there's a lot of ways to take it, or even just start a couple ounces first thing in the morning if it doesn't bother your stomach. That can be another great way too. But yeah, doing what you said at the start of your meals or right before your meals, that's the best way to take it. And then if you can't, because you're like me and I'm just a little bit repulsed by it, I will do just the stomach acid support. It's just a capsule I take mid-meal, betaine HCl. And again, I have a whole guide on that with some other tips that I could send you to put in the show notes, but stomach acid is really important. So you go, girl, with the apple cider vinegar.
Well, I'm going to try to do it better. But like you said, if there's something that you don't like and you're not going to do it, then there's so many other things that you've given us today. There's so many other options and so many other ways we can make sure that this is more optimal in the way that we're eating. And I think one of the biggest takeaways too that so many people don't do, and this is a show that a lot of moms listen to, is not being distracted while we eat or eating too fast. I've always been a fast eater, but once I had kids, that just 10x'd. I mean, I was just like, ah. So, and I'm better now. My kids are older now, but it's still, I think that's something that I always have to be mindful of, or that my default is eat it fast, check my emails, just not paying attention, not taking that breath. And so it's something that we've talked about on this show. And I always have to be reminded of. And I think it's a good reminder for everyone. It's hard. It's so hard. But you have given us so many nuggets that are on your Instagram. So tell us where everybody can find you, because everybody's going to want to go to your Instagram. And then tell us how they can work with you, all the good stuff. And we'll make sure to link all of this in the notes.
Perfect. So my Instagram is at the poop queen. You can't forget it. There's tons of things if you scroll down on my page, lots of different reels. I also have a podcast, as you mentioned. It's called The Health Revival Show. We have over 750 episodes, and there's tons and tons of content on there. All things functional health, training, mom life, entrepreneurship, all of it. And then our website is fitmom.co. You can find us there. I'm not sure when this is airing, but that's our new website that's launching. If it's quick that it airs. FITMOMlife.com is where you can go to our current website. And there's a link there that you can book a call with our team just to chat about you, your situation, what's going on. We generally work with clients in 6-month time blocks because the healing work takes time.
Yeah.
Right? We know that the body is resilient. The body wants to heal, but it's not like a pharmaceutical, where you're just slapping a harsh drug in the system and things maybe change or don't. It really is getting to the root cause. And so a lot of times for women, we do start with functional testing. Comprehensive blood work is the first thing that we do for basically everyone, unless they're coming in with it or whatnot. And then, most of the time I'm looking at a stool test because I really want to be specific about how I'm supporting her and what's going on within her gut microbiome. And eventually we work into hormones. So that's what we do with our women. It's our Healthy Gut, Happy Hormones program. And we work with people just one-on-one, no group coaching or anything like that. It's very high level, individualized protocols for people. So that's where you can find us.
You are such a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so happy you were able to come and share all of this with us. I'm going to be re-listening and taking more notes because I learned a lot. But thank you. Thanks for coming and sharing with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.